Hi there! Welcome to Pallet University. Last week we did a piece about the poison type, which you can find right up there. And it focused mainly on which poison types have poison strong enough to kill a human, so definitely check that one out. So if you did not know, I'm an actual, in real life scientist, and the research that I've had published doesn't really focus on things like poison. Instead, it focuses mainly on the movement of diversity over time as the climate changes. And while my research spanned about 80 million years, today's video is much more recent. And today we're talking about the Steel type and why there are no natural Steel type Pokemon native to Kanto. So I know what you're thinking before you start smashing your face off the keyboard telling me that Magnemite and Magneton exist. I know. That's what I mean by natural Steel types. Machine Pokemon aren't really natural Pokemon and wouldn't really exist if humans didn't. That would be a really neat idea for a future video. Which Pokemon would exist without humans? But Pokemon like the Magnemite, Clink, and Honedge lines, as well as Pokemon like Wormadam, Trashcoat, Genesect, Klefki, Magearna, Meltan, and Melmetal, were all made by humans, or at least out of human machinery or items like swords and keys, so they're not really natural. Also, Pokemon like Dialga and Solgaleo and all of the Steel-type Ultra Beasts, they don't really count either since they're from like other dimensions, and they're not really native to any region. Kind of a lengthy explanation, but it'll be important, so trust me, we'll get there. Something else that's really important about Steel types is that it's pretty well documented that, all the Steel types that are animals mostly get their metal from eating dirt or rocks that have a lot of iron in them. So based on that, we can assume that where there's more iron in the ground, there will be more Steel types. If we take a look at the Pokemon World Map, which we have also done a video about, we can map out where the most natural Steel types are found. To figure this out, I took the number of natural Steel types in the regional Pokedex from the first game in each generation and divided it by the total number of Pokemon to get a percentage. Kanto, obviously the focus of this entire video, has 0 out of 151, so 0%. Johto had 4 out of 251, which is 1.59%. Hoenn had 10 out of 202, which is 4.95%. Sinnoh had just 5 Steel types out of 151 Pokemon in the Diamond and Pearl Pokedex, which is 3.31%. And that one I thought was really weird, because not every Gen 4 Pokemon is in the Diamond and Pearl Pokedex, and most of the ones that are left out are some of the evolutions of older Gen Pokemon, like Mamoswine and Probopass, and the legendary Pokemon like Regigigas and Cresselia. But either way, if you include them, or just go by the Diamond and Pearl Pokedex, it ends up being between 3.3 and 3.4%. That's also sort of weird, because unlike every other previous generation, the, second set of games in the series wasn't just a copy-pasted, copy of the first set of games with just a couple tweaks. Black 2 and White 2 were full-fledged sequels. So, I did the percentages of those two since, in the game, they actively state that Pokemon have migrated into Unova that weren't there before. It never really says why all these new Pokemon migrated into Unova during Black 2, White 2, but that'd also be a really neat topic for a video. Anyway, in Black and White there were 8 Steel types out of 155 total for 5.16%, and for Black 2, White 2 there were 18 out of 300, which is 6%. Both are definitely the highest percentages out of any region. Kalos had 14 out of a whopping 457 Pokemon in the Pokedex for a total of 3.06%, and finally Alola had 12 out of 301, or 3.99%. So what does all of that mean? If we take a look at the map from before with the percentages of Steel types added to the region that they go with, we can see that Kanto and Johto have the least, which makes sense because they are the closest together geographically. And the highest are Hoenn and Unova. Hoenn makes sense because, from me being a geologist's perspective, it appears to be a chain of volcanic islands, and generally volcanic islands tend to produce really iron-rich rocks, which make really iron-rich soils. Unova's shape kind of reminds me of a rift zone, which is when two tectonic plates move apart, like what's currently happening in Eastern Africa, and basically when they move apart, a bunch of magma comes up and takes its place, and magma, generally, is rather iron-rich, especially in these kind of deep rift zone areas. Another really interesting pattern that I noticed while doing this research is which regions that wild Steelix occur. It's pretty well documented that Onyx eat the dirt and soil that they burrow around in, And if the soil has enough iron in it, it makes sense that that would make them evolve into Steelix without the use of a metal coat. And that fits pretty nicely with our theories because you can only find wild Steelix in Sinnoh and Unova. And I would be willing to bet that if you could find wild Onyx in either Alola or Hoenn, you would also be able to find wild Steelix, since they are toward the higher end of our percentages. I guess you can sort of find wild Onyx in Alola. You can find it on the island scan in I think Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I'm not positive about Sun and Moon, but if it's on the island scan, it's quite rare. So I would say you might be able to find Steelix like in an actual real world scenario, but it's a game, and in reality it's just not coded in the game. This also explains why in Generation 2, the only possible way to get a Steelix is by artificially giving it metal by using the metal coat item. So that is going to wrap up this week's lecture. Thank you very much for watching. Keep an eye out for next week's weekly lecture. If you enjoy Pokemon Science and Pokemon Theories, make sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Pallet_U. And as always, there's a time and place for everything.